Hi there! Welcome to Pallet University and the next video in our Real Biologist Reacts series reacting to the art of the ever so talented Joshua Dunlop. Make sure to go show Joshua all sorts of support. His social links will be down in the description, including his ArtStation page, which you can see here on the screen, as well as his Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube pages. So make sure to go show all of those lots and lots of support. And while you are down in the description checking out all of Joshua's social media links, make sure to leave this video a thumbs up or a thumbs down if you don't enjoy this video. That is equally as helpful to me to let me know that. And since you're already down there, you might as well click the subscribe button. It's right there so that you can keep up on everything else we got going on the channel, as well as the next time we put out one of these videos. So with that, let's get into the actual content of the video. Today we're talking about the Poliwag line and how just really weird they are, just in general as Pokemon, but like to see them become like somewhat real is so weird. So yeah, let's start with Poliwag. So I think it's pretty well known, but if in case you don't know, so Poliwag is actually based off of the whole swirl on its stomach is reference to a lot of tadpoles when they are still in their like larval form. You can see through their stomach and see their intestines, which are curled in a circle like that. So that is what this is a reference to. So Poliwag is basically a semi-formed, like it is a tadpole in the process of becoming an adult frog. And so typically they actually, I think, form their front legs first. I don't know that for sure though, that might be wrong. I'm actually gonna look that up. Okay, so I was wrong. So they do actually develop their hind limbs first. So that works, that makes sense. Their tail is sort of like this, although it's not nearly as nice looking as this. So typically they'll have the like actual proper tail goes to all the way to the end. And typically it is sort of thicker, even thicker than what I'm drawing here. So it'd probably be more like the actual tail itself would probably be something like this. And then this sort of fin or like fluke or keel, that's the proper term, is the keel on the tail, would sort of extend from there to make it easier for them to swim. Much like sharks have a keel on like their tail as well. And so that seems to make sense. It being sort of having an upright spine and then tail like that does not make sense. Tadpoles, like basically every other vertebrate besides humans, because humans are just bad. Like I've mentioned before, humans are horrible. I mean, in for many reasons, but just like anatomically, humans are very bad at being bipedal. So anytime that someone depicts like for example, a fictional creature with a vertical spine and then a tail that does something like that, I'm like, why would you design it that way? Because it's bad. It's objectively bad. And it might be less bad because Poliwag is so much smaller, but like the reason why humans have so many back problems is because we have a vertical spine. The reason why it is so easy for, like, the reason why your knees are garbage when you get older is because we have vertical spines. The reason why human babies are so helpless, believe it or not, is because we have vertical spines. And so I mean, granted, this is supposed to be about the Poliwag line, so I won't go too much into that. But long story short, our pelvis had to change in such a way that babies had to be born earlier than they should be, which is why, you know, animals like a baby elephant or a baby horse can walk within like an hour, whereas it takes baby humans months. You know, I don't actually know that much about babies, even though I do have a pretty young niece. But anyway, several months to learn how to even walk, even like crawl, let alone walk and be able to keep up with like the herd of its family. So human babies are objectively bad. And anytime anyone designs an animal / fictional creature with a vertical spine, I'm like, why would you do that? Because it's not good. Anyway, Poliwag. Tangent aside, so I kind of wish that Joshua had actually designed it as its like guts / intestines. And here you can sort of vaguely be like, I could see it because it's got some veins and stuff. Which like does make sense because, as I've mentioned a couple times in various videos in this series, amphibians have blood vessels very close to their skin so that they can breathe through their skin. In fact, the most diverse and like largest group of salamanders don't even have lungs. They used to have them, and then they were like, I don't need those anymore. I got my skin. So I would assume that that's how Poliwag exchanges its oxygen as well, because of A, it's clearly wet, which your skin needs to be wet if you want to exchange oxygen through it, as well as having all these blood vessels close to the skin. But because of the blood vessels, it sort of does make it look like that could be its intestines. But also see once we get to Poliwhirl and Polywrath, it's very clearly a pattern on its actual ventral side. What else do we have? So its eyes do look very froggy. I will give Joshua that. Its eyes do look very froggy. And then tadpole mouths are very, very weird in that tadpoles are actually sort of classified by their mouths. And I used to know this. I had to know this for a class years ago. What semester was that even? That was my final semester of community college. So that was spring 2016. So yeah, almost 5 years ago. I had to learn this for a class. But anyway, they have sort of like little plates instead of like a proper mouth. I mean, they do have a mouth, but they have like little plates around it instead of like teeth in their mouth. And that's sort of what the opening to the mouth looks like. It's almost sort of like a beak, actually. So it's not quite what it should look like. But I guess you could sort of argue that like because it's already more metamorphosing, that it should look more like a normal mouth. Okay, I'll give you that. What else? It's cool that it gives it nostrils, or that Joshua gives Poliwag nostrils. Again, I don't know that it would need them because I would kind of doubt that it has lungs at this point. But it could, and I guess you would probably need to develop nostrils before you develop lungs so that you can breathe with your lungs. Well, the frogs don't really breathe through their... No, I guess they do. Yeah, they do breathe through their nostrils. They don't really breathe through their mouth that much. I guess they wouldn't really need to, because their nostrils basically lead right into the mouth. Anyway, so when you see a frog doing like its throat thing, breathing, it's actually really weird and honestly super inefficient, which is why a lot of them breathe through their skin too. But when they drop their throat, that pulls air in through their nose. And then when they... but it also pulls air out of their lungs. So the old air from their lungs sort of mixes with the new air from their nose. So air from their lungs and through the nose comes into the mouth. And then when they push their throat back up, it pushes air into their lungs and also out of their nose. So that is how frogs breathe. Not super efficient, which again, why they breathe through their skin. Mammals are better. Anyway, moving on to Poliwhirl. So this is where I start to sort of disagree with Joshua on a couple things. So number one, these eyes look very, very froggy. 100% agree. However, he gives it a mouth. And I don't agree with that. You know, whenever you see like Misty's Poliwrath or Poliwhirl, and then I in the video that I did for like how Charizard would be as a pet, I watched an episode where some character that like you never hear from again has a Poliwrath, and when it uses its moves, it just sort of does it from like right here, this general area. And I think Poliwhirl, like Misty's Poliwhirl, uses Water Gun from like the middle of its spiral. And I think even in the games, that's where they use their special water type moves from. But in none of the games do they have a mouth. And like I understand Joshua giving them a mouth because obviously it's an animal, it needs to eat, therefore it needs a mouth. But I don't know. I kind of disagree with just how he chose to do it. So also based on the skin, he makes it out to be somewhat like toad-like in that the skin is pretty like relatively thick for an amphibian, and pretty like keratinous, which is, you know, filled with keratin, like our skin. You know, that's what makes our skin basically waterproof. And so that's what all these little bumps sort of remind me of. And so because of that, it can no longer breathe through its skin. Which I think there's references to Poliwhirl like needing to like stay wet in the Pokedex. I don't know that for sure. You know, I don't know everything about every Pokemon. And like I don't script these. This was literally the first time that I see these, you know, up close, and I just sort of regurgitate science information at you. So I don't script these, and I don't do really much research ahead of time. So, but I'm almost positive that there is a Pokedex entry that references Poliwhirl needing to stay moist or damp. Sorry if you don't like the word moist. But and then he also appears to give it like a little tooth. Maybe that's just a weird artifact of maybe there's something in the foreground, like one of these little particles in between. Just happens to be there. But it looks like he gives it a little tooth, which like, I guess if you're gonna give it a mouth, sure, give it teeth. Is there anything else really notable about this? I do like the way that he doesn't just like straight up give them gloves like they do in the game. How he just sort of makes their hands basically mittens and white, but sort of like grades them to being white. How it's not just like suddenly blue and then white. So it's sort of like there's like a bit of a gradient there, which I do like. Just overall, probably one of my lesser favorite designs. Just with some of the choices that Joshua made. That doesn't mean I think it looks bad, like not at all. Obviously, like the background as well looks super cool. There's like lily pads and stuff that look super cool. But I don't know, just one of my lesser favorite designs. And then we get into Poliwrath, which I kind of like even less, to be honest. Where it's like the things that I didn't like about Poliwhirl kind of just get made bigger here, and that these very much do look like big frog eyes. Like these look like bullfrog eyes. With the mouth just gets bigger and wider, which a lot of the bigger frogs do have like proportionally gigantic mouths. If you think of something like a pixie frog or an African bullfrog, they can eat like whole rats, which are almost the size of them. So having a giant mouth makes sense. Although, actually, let me go back to Poliwag for a second. This looks like the ocean, and so does this, which does not make sense. If they're based off of modern amphibians, they will die almost immediately if you put them in salt water. Just because they exchange water so easily through their skin, or at least with fish. If you put a saltwater or freshwater fish in salt water, it will die. Like, don't get me wrong, it'll absolutely die. But it will take longer because they don't really exchange water through their skin. They only do it really at their gills. So it'll happen slower. But because frogs exchange water through their skin just like they do gases, if you were to take a pond frog, like a leopard frog here in North America, and you put that in salt water, almost immediately that thing will die. Like within probably 10 minutes it'll die. It'll become so dehydrated it'll shrivel up and basically die of dehydration. So like drawing it by the sea does not make sense. Although to be fair, he does give it very like warty skin to make it more toad-like. So like if you take a toad and put it in salt water as well, it'll still die. But slower than it would if it were like a pond frog. But yeah, I don't know. Just some of my lesser favorite designs. This is basically just a bigger, angrier Poliwrath, Poliwhirl, which is all Poliwrath normally is, like in this depiction right here below me anyway. I'm trying to think any more biological stuff. Like I said, I do wish, and like I understand why, because with Poliwag, it makes sense that like they're in a tadpole, its intestines do take up pretty much its entire body, at least from the ventral side. But in a more developed frog, it would make sense that its intestines wouldn't be up to its neck. But I don't know. I mean, it's better than another depiction of like a realistic Pokemon. I think somebody else I don't even remember the name of this other artist, which I should. But they do sort of like horror versions of like realistic Pokemon. And the one that I remember seeing is like its mouth, like this black line. Oh, that's not on the line. But like the black line all around was its mouth. So like there were teeth all swirling its body, and I'm like, that is objectively terrifying. So I do like this better than that. But I don't know. And it just sort of goes back to the overall theme of some of the disagreements that I have with Joshua on some of his stuff, and that like I'm just sort of confused that when he chooses to take a creative liberty, such as giving Poliwhirl and Poliwrath a mouth, and when he chooses not to. I'm just curious on some of like if he has like established rules for when to do it and when not to do it, or if he just kind of does it, you know, on a case-by-case basis. Yeah, I'm really not sure. But it's something I'd love to like talk to him at some point about in the future. And I want to be very clear. Like, I'm not at all hating on these images. Obviously, if I'm not thinking about them from like a biological standpoint, these look super cool. Like, this is an objectively super cool, like, Poliwrath is supposed to be this big, gruff, tough Pokemon next to like this crashing sea on this craggy beach. Looks super cool. And like the detail looks very cool. It's just some of the biological stuff I'm like, from a biology standpoint, like I understand the choice that he made, again, because it's like, it's an animal. It kind of needs a mouth to, you know, eat. So like, I agree with it from that point. But yeah, I don't want people to get the idea that, you know, that I'm hating on any of this art at all. But just like with, you know, think of like your favorite musician or your favorite band. You know, there's going to be songs that you like better than others. That doesn't mean you listen to a song by them and you hate it automatically just because you like other songs better. These are just some of my lesser favorite pieces of art by him. That's all. Anywho, let me know down below your thoughts on these. And, you know, if you think I'm wrong, if you think, oh, these ones are super cool, these ones are great, here's why, biologically, blah, blah, blah. Let me know that down in the comments below, please. And while you're down there, please, like I said, check out all of Joshua's socials down in the description. And while you're at it, you can follow me on Twitter at Pallet_U to keep up on all things Pokemon science, as well as if you feel like our content is worthy of supporting financially, we do have a Patreon down in the description as well. Thank you so much to our patrons. At this point, at the time of recording in late November, we only have one. So if you have become a patron since then, I will make sure to shout you out in the next video that I am not bulk recording. So at the moment, we only have Patty Murphy, who is still greatly appreciated, especially coming through to all the streams and stuff. I love just talking with Patty in the streams, which we do every Friday. Right now we're doing premieres every Friday because I am away from my computer, for the same reason that I'm bulk recording all this content. So make sure to come through on every Friday. We do like a premiere and or a stream. Speaking of that, thank you, Patty. I don't know why I just did thumbs up, not thumbs down. Anyway, it's late and I've recorded a bunch of videos today. Anyway, thank you, Patty, and any other patrons if you happen to be there. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I hope you're enjoying all the Patreon exclusive content. And lastly, thank you so much for watching, and as always, there's a time and place for everything.